Okay, well, my computer says it's 9 o'clock, so why don't we get going? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, April 22nd, 2021 Washington County Board of Commissioners Roundtable. Here with me this morning, this is Chair Catherine Harrington. We have Commissioners Pam Treese, Commissioner Nafisa Fai, and Commissioner Roy Rogers. And I'm expecting Commissioner Jerry Woolley will be joining us soon. So the first thing we usually do is go through some informational updates as well as agenda review. Today we'll get a tour of the new iAgenda software that is used to put our packets together. It's pretty cool. Kevin will take us through that. And then we're really going to be focusing on agency financials today. First from Clean Water Services, and then with Washington County. As far as informational updates go, Kevin updated the packet with the latest information. Two items that I've brought forward to your attention. The first is an updated roundtable plan. We are, as you know, previously we've canceled the May roundtable because of budget, and that would have left us with a roundtable in early June, but it seemed more prudent to hold off on that, give ourselves an opportunity. Good morning, Commissioner Willie, an opportunity to exhale and catch up a little bit. So we're moving forward with the July roundtable, but with the orientation of the holidays and wanting to bring a facilitator in to help us with some conversations, we're going to, right now we're targeting July 22nd. And I'm hoping that we can have that meeting face-to-face as well in the auditorium. Then you'll see an updated list of items for August all the way through the end of the year. Several things for us to catch up on. So that's what's happening there. Then there's a memo. I asked Elizabeth to put together a memo for us with regard to organizing ourselves for our town halls for the remainder of the year. So if you could all bring that up, that would be useful. Does everyone have that handy? Either from the latest packet or from an email that I think I sent yesterday. I just don't want to start too quickly, so raise your hand if you're okay, Jerry. I'm just looking. Okay, Nafisa, Pam's got it. Commissioner Rogers, do you have it?
Yeah, it's in the roundtable packet, right? That's what I'm looking at. So, yeah.
Okay, so we'll just get rolling. So I think we had a pretty successful roundtable on Saturday, March 6th, where the real theme of that one was allowing us each time to share our priorities with the community. Folks had the opportunity to participate and tune in via Zoom or to watch via YouTube. So the production support consisted of getting the slides together that reflected our priorities and our contact information, having the Spanish channel interpreters and the 2 ASL interpreters. And just a short rundown of what it takes logistically to staff that kind of thing. And then you can see that she shared with us information about the Zoom attendees as well as the YouTube attendees. So if you look at the second page, you see our goal is to have 4 town halls in 2021. And to keep things somewhat simple, I'm just going to assume that all 4 of them are held virtually or through video applications like this year. No need to go back and forth which way it's going to be. We'll just keep it simple. And so we have the goal of the 4. We've done the March one, so 3 more. And looking at it schedule-wise, our team worked together, and we're going to be targeting, the early fall for our annual budget listening tour. So that community investment conversation is currently slated for October. So town hall number 2 is slated for Monday, June 28th. We'll want to lock down pretty soon what our theme or main topic is. And based upon that, we may decide to have that meeting just for 1 hour versus 2. The third one is slated for September 18th, which is a Saturday, similar to what we did March 6th. And then the 4th one of the year is being set up for Thursday, December 2nd. So any questions on that? Then the next category is just a brainstorm list of ideas. Given that we have the June one, we might talk about how we take our priorities and put them into action via our budget investments. We heard at the March roundtable some interest in talking more about or sharing with our public more about how we help foster mental health in our community. We know we've got ARP funding coming up. So I thought, well, maybe, ARP and economic recovery, that might be a good topic to talk about later in the year, possibly September. We heard from our community investment conversation in 2020, as well as discussions with our chief equity officer, that our community members are interested in learning more about how they can be engaged and influence our policy and investment decisions. So that's an idea in the list. And then, climate change continues to come up in different forums. So I put that in the list as well. And we do know that we have our multi-agency or cross-agency, interagency climate task force setting things up for us, both Washington County and Clean Water Services. So I think it would be great if we have the opportunity of building off of that before setting up for town hall on that. So those were just 5 ideas that I had. We don't have to close on this today, but we do need to make sure that we lock this down by the middle of May, which is only 3 weeks away. Surprise, May is right around the corner. So if you just want to, forward ideas, send an email, and then I should make sure that at our work session on May 11th that we sync up on that. Does that sound like a plan or thoughts? Sounds like a plan. Okay. Well, let me know if you think any of those are bad ideas, right? So that'll be great. Lastly, I just had one other thing because of timeliness. Late yesterday was the Fairgrounds Advisory Committee meeting, and this upcoming weekend is the first show at the Wingspan Event Center. It's the Reptile Show. It's the first of our safe fun events. so there will be, limited access compared to pre-COVID times. And we've been asked to do our part to use our network to help promote that. It's being promoted through the Fairgrounds Facebook page, but I just checked that Facebook page, and even though it's Thursday and the event starts Saturday, there's no information there yet. I don't know, Commissioner Willie, maybe you've seen something that I haven't seen, but so I'm going to be going away this weekend, so I'm not working tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned it today, because if it gets posted tomorrow, I won't see it and I won't know to send you an email about it. So if you could just look out for that, I'd really appreciate it. And so would our team. So I believe that, as I wrote down, the ticket prices are $10 for adults and $5 for kids. That's it for me for informational updates. Anything from any of you want to share? Nope. I think Commissioner Willie's just double checking his lists, checking them twice.
After 4 days in a row, it's hard to come up with anything new that we've seen one another. But I'm speaking in another group on Tuesday, and I don't want anyone to lose sight. I still want to take a look, and hopefully you all will support some kind of a term limitation ballot measure. I'm seeing that's very, very, very popular. My district has a lot of them, and I would hope that this commission might consider doing that versus bringing it as a citizen initiative. Theirs would be much more stringent than the one I would like to see. The one I like to see would be that it would be 2 terms for a commissioner, 2 terms for the chair, with a 12-year limitation if you either ran for chair or you ran for the commission after that. But I know the public, at least ones I've been talking to, are saying that it's good in all of our cities. It ought to be good for the county as well. So I'm just updating it.
Well, you know the routine. If you've got an idea, put it together. I think 2 terms is too short myself, and having worked at an agency with a 3-term, City of Beaverton just advanced 3 terms as well. I think 12 years is a good target. So I think
that's a good idea too.
Things.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things that bears some research and going from there. But as we've talked previously, we are anticipating going through our strategic planning process and updating our charter from there. So,
Yeah, I spent City of Hillsborough's mayor and city councilors are all term limited at 8 years, and it was kind of a bittersweet thing for me when I left the mayor's office. But after I'd been out a while, looking back, I thought, it was pretty good. It was time for transition to Mayor Callaway, get some fresh ideas in there, and so 8 years probably works for me. But I'd have to give that some more thought. But yes, I'm with you, Roy, on this. We need to, if this is kind of a movement, we need to get ahead of it a little bit rather than being, I guess, pushed into something that we don't think would work. So anyway, from my standpoint, and you're talking about the event center, Catherine. I have a meeting at 4:00 Saturday afternoon with Leah and Gary Seidel, Andy Dyke, who's the chair and vice chair of the Fair Board. And I think we're going to be talking about what the new risk category that we are now in and the impact that may have to any planning that we were starting to do under a different set of rules. And so So I'll keep you up to. I'll update you next Tuesday when we have our meeting then. But yeah, that's really an unfortunate thing, because I think we the 4-H groups, we're all pretty excited about maybe some possibilities of getting out in front of the people and being able to demonstrate what their work is, and this may significantly limit that. So I'll bring you up to speed on that too. So
Yep. It's all about the community spread of the virus, and our community could surprise us, so to speak, and help us get back to at least moderate risk by June 1st. Wouldn't that be great? And then go from there. I realize that there's advanced planning with the fair, and I'm with you in wanting to make sure that 4-H and FFA kids have the best opportunity moving forward. And families are longing to have some events, fun events to participate in. So, man, yep. But it's all up to individuals in our community. So we know the drill. Wear the masks, physical distancing, all that jazz. Wash your hands. Get vaccinated.
I'd like a quick question to Jerry. I've been thinking about the fair as well, and I know you make so many commitments for various people to come and to play there and to do. I mean, you got vendors. What's the contingency if all of a sudden the governor decides that that's not an acceptable event? Is there a huge financial loss, or how does all that work? I'm just curious.
Well, I'll just put it this way. Up to now, Roy, in previous years, there's kind of a lock-in date, and generally that's about May 1st. And that's what we've been going on now. COVID and being in a different risk category and those kinds of things would be certainly a game changer. But and I'm sure that Leah has taken all that into consideration. Like I said, I'll find out more on Saturday. But we were under the previous risk category. We were moving ahead on probably more of a social and agricultural fair. So social being carnival, getting some revenue generation in there with the criteria in the contract with the carnivals that there had to be social distancing, there had to be sanitization of every time somebody got off a ride, it had to be sanitized before a new person could get on it, all of those criteria. And Leah has been in conversation with these carnival groups, and they're all on board with that because they know they've been a year out of any kind of opportunity for revenue generation for them. So they're going to do everything they can to be able to perform. With the new risk category, I don't know that that's going to be possible for us. And so, yeah, I'll find out more on Saturday, but generally May 1 is our lockdown date. And at that point, we're committed and obligated.
Plus, there's the complication that there are two sets of protocols to be followed. One set for fair and another set for the retail aspect of it. So yep, the venue managers all have some interesting protocols and criteria to navigate through.
Well, and as you said,
with the pandemic, right?
and as you said, everybody is just clamoring to have events and go outside. So you can imagine if we would open this up, kind of crack the door open a little bit and say, let's just have a little fair. And all of a sudden we get 20,000 people to show up or something like that. We'd be having some real issues. So yeah, keeping all that in consideration when we're doing our planning.
Yep, that's the truth. Cool. Anything else? All righty, so we'll move on then to iAgenda. You ready for us, Kevin?
I am, Madam Chair. Let me show you the new. Okay. Can everyone see my screen here? Okay, so thank you, Commissioners. Kevin Moss, your clerk to the board. So this is a presentation of our new iAgenda platform that went live on Tuesday with your packet for next Tuesday, April 27th meeting. So we'll kind of give an overview of the portal, and then we'll go into the specifics relating to the packet itself. So this is the main portal homepage where you board and the public can visit. So it has the 4 main tabs at the top here: the homepage, the calendar, meetings, and our search function. And we'll go over each of those as we get through it. So we did have the Meet Your Board function, which contains the same information on the current website with your bios and your positions and all that information. We'll go briefly. So we have the schedule of meetings on the right-hand side. Ways to contact us, today's meeting on it. So we did put all the roundtable information on this site as well. So we doubled our transparency efforts. We'll go briefly, just overview of these tiles right now, and then I'll go back with more specifics on it and be available for any questions. So we have the search tab if you're looking for any specific things related to board agendas or minutes or specific items that you as the board discuss and take action on. The How to Testify icon is for the public so they can register to get on our list to testify at any meetings. The county charter and code page, that will link back to our regular website with the charter, the code, and the rules of procedure that we'll be updating next week. And this attendance and voting tab will come back to this. This will be that will track your attendance and voting on specific items at the meeting. So we'll go to the main meetings page. And so here you'll see kind of, we had to set up the system with kind of the 4 basic meeting types that the meetings the board has. You have your regular board meetings, your housing authority, your work session, and the roundtable we're in today. So the first main change you'll notice is in prior packets, the housing authority meeting agenda and the board agenda were together. Under this new system, they're 2 separate packets. So you'll have to click on each of those packets for the meeting. You'll notice on the Board of Commissioners, it will have in this blue box here, the regular business. So this is the main meeting for next week. And as you know, so if I click on this, when you receive your constant contact email, as you normally would, Chair, do you have a question?
No, not a question. It's just like so many click-throughs just to get to the packet.
Yeah.
And how's it going to work on a cell phone?
So it does have the options of converting into kind of different blocks on the cell phone as the current website does now. So we tested it with our facilitator, Francine Coates, and with their IT over there. So it will balance out on different devices. So on that constant contact email where you get the link, it takes you to this main page. So on it is the agenda. Let's look. And the first thing that the change we made is the Zoom link, as we currently have on the board meeting page, will now be directly on the agenda. So it will be on your calendars as usual, but also on the top of the agenda. So any member of the public can click directly and get into the meetings. The second change we made was from using the numbers to delegate the categories. We've changed it to letters because with the consent agenda, as we've known for the budget committee and other meetings, we have lots of consent agenda items. So we didn't want to run out of letters. So we changed it to numbers so we will be able to better track all the items. And the other piece that's worth mentioning here is normally we have the category headings of each department under it. Under this model, we couldn't incorporate that feature into it. So as you'll see, this hyperlink down below, it has agenda item, and then it'll have the department. So we will still go with clean water services first, and then alphabetically for the rest of the items on. So it gives you a direct of how many pages the item is in this table of contents. But the very cool features that we have here is this split screen option at the top for you and the public that will give you a side-by-side view of the meeting. So if you click on this clean water services item, you have your agenda listed on your left, but you have the actual item listed on the right. So you can scroll through the item, get any information you may need out of it while still having access to the agenda, so you're not confined in just one space. And the very interesting piece that we were able to get with this new system is this notes feature at the top. So if you click on that, it brings up it so you can click on any item, and then it allow you to type any personal notes or notes of the meeting of additional questions you may have or something that is specific to you as the user. So, Madam Chair, yes, go ahead.
But are those saved on the network? Because that I'm concerned about that being considered a public record then.
Yes, so these should be saved under your individual. We can get it where you're logged in, where your notes are saved directly to you, so you'll have access to them.
They're saved to the network or someplace automatically, so we don't have to worry about that? Question mark? Okay.
Yeah, you should not have to, but we will definitely confirm that to make sure, because that is very important. So that was just a new feature that we wanted to add, and this we have with some commissioners that have the iPads. The app has already been loaded onto those. So this view is a desktop right now, but it will work much the same, and we will have staff available for any trainings if any commissioners want to go that route. Or if you just continue your current process as you do, that is perfectly up to you. So on each of the agenda items, we try to make them very tailored, very specific to how you see the items now. So we didn't want any surprises or anything outside of the box. So the title, meeting date is everything there. And then the requested action will be the first thing at the top, which will correspond directly as to what is the department asking a view board of what they want to do with their item. So that is, does anyone have any questions on the split screen option that you'll be able to view for both the board and the public? Okay.
Kevin, I have a comment. This is Roy.
Yeah.
I want to give you a big A+. For those of us who grew up when we had big packet books that were about 4 or 5 inches thick, and then went obviously to the electronic age, we missed having that toggling between the agenda and the material, because you're sitting there. In the old days, we could take a look at the agenda and then we could go and look at the backup. And if you're looking at a screen, it's very difficult. You're trying to go back and forth. So I give you a big A+, but one thought request, and see if this makes any sense. Oftentimes, and we can't control if letters come in late, but oftentimes we'll get lots of letters on a particular issue. It would be nice to be able to see those loaded so that you could sit there and you could see the agenda like you just did, the staff item. I don't know if you have such a thing as a triple pane, but if not, at least it would be behind the agenda. So you could see what the agenda was, you could see what the materials were, and then you could also see any letters. And so fishing around trying to find them, it's okay if you're in person and you got them laid out on a desk. But if you're electronic, you're again trying to toggle to see what they're saying and whether we're addressing it during the hearing. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. And we do have the feature on here if we get letters that are to a specific item, kind of a little bit in advance of the meeting, there is that option of preparing it in there. We just want to make sure there are no surprises for you, for the commissioners or Tanya, to make sure. So yeah, that is definitely on our radar to tackle and try how do we streamline that to make that work most effectively. And the other interesting part, so any attachments that are submitted by the department's items, they're automatically PDF in the thing. So all you have to do is click the hyperlink and it takes you directly to that item in the agenda. So you don't have to scroll down. You can just go to that. So there is a feature of each item is bookmarked between the work session sheet, and then any of the attachments will all be listed in this pane here. So you have different options of how you want to view all of the items. So,
Kevin, I have a question. If Roy, if you're through, I've got a question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would you just go back and then show us again how we get the split screen?
Yes, absolutely. So you come here. So if you click from your email, the constant contact link, it'll take you to this page. So it gives you the option of, creating a PDF of the agenda, a PDF of the entire packet, or split screen is right here on your right. And you just click that and it'll take you right back into it to any items. So for example,
that's a great feature because like Roy said, I've set up 2 computer screens now, so I didn't have to go back to the agenda and then go back down to page 120 to see the documents related to that item. So that's why I've got 2 computers set up. This will allow me to not have to do that. I probably still will, just for a variety of things, but this will certainly make that easier. So I like this part.
Yeah, this we were definitely impressed as we were getting to this, and this is and I really give thanks to the team of Angie Aguilar and Ananiola and Jennifer Kwan, who really were starting this when I was brought on board last year, and that I was just kind of the poster child for showing it to you guys at the ending here. So it was complete team effort on that. But if we go back to the main page, I'll go through those tiles a little bit more and we'll go through those. So what we're excited for is this is only phase 1 of our launch that was specifically tailored to the agenda to be how do we become more transparent and engage the public more, as we were discussing earlier. And what we're going to do is we've gotten some questions from constituents, everything of how will they see the final information of signed items that the board has approved. And what we've set up under the meetings tab is once the meeting is over and I have gotten a chance to go back through each of the items and sign them and assign them their minute order or resolution, or I will republish the packet that will be available for the public. So they will see the completed packet that will be for our records retention and the public. So they will be able to see each and every document, the signed version of what the board approved. So we're being completely transparent now. Instead of the current model where constituents would have to contact us to get those, we're completely taking it a step further and going, we are being transparent and public. We want you to see what your board of commissioners is approved. And so, I'll show you an example. So I was mentioning the attendance and voting. So an example of this, can everyone see this screen here? Okay, so this is an example of Newport News out of Virginia that they have this attendance and voting tab. So it has their meeting date, what item it was, how the commissioner voted on it, and what the result was. So this will be captured in the record for any member of the public and for you, that you can see, did you attend all the meetings? How did you vote on a specific item? It's very upfront and transparent for the public. So we want to make sure that was completely as part of this for record keeping and management. On the main page, we want to, because we know we've heard some comments about the search feature and how that works. So we're very insistent on how do we make this work for the public. So we incorporated that, and we are testing it, and we've incorporated and uploaded kind of last 10 years of meetings into the system so that we can go back. So you don't have to go back and search or contact us. You'll be able to use the system and do this. And one of the things that I was talking about with this being phase 1 launch, we have phase 2 that's going to introduce this board meeting video manager piece that's going to be able to timestamp the videos of specific things in the meeting. So instead of the YouTube page where they have to scroll, they'll be able to click to specific items in a meeting that will show along with the agenda. And a kind of example of how that looks like is here. This is Sonoma City. They have the video that will show on the same page as the agenda, all the information. It's like a one-stop shop of everything that happened for that meeting. So if we click, I'll just a little example here of the video. So it start, and then you would just click the individual item you're looking for, and it will go to that direct section of the video to play. So let's go. So that one didn't have it, but that's what it's going to be able to do for the county. So that's one of the pieces that we're working towards. IT is in the loop on that. So we're beginning phase 2, but we want to make sure that we focused on phase 1 to get that right first, because that's our first priority to the public, is making sure they have all the information available to them, and you board have the available to make all the decisions you need to make. That was kind of our kind of brief, concise overview, but I'm available for any questions you may have on this, Madam Chair.
So I have a few questions. So right now, if we go to download our packet from Tuesday, we see the new format of the packet, but we don't see this tool. If you go to co.washington.or.us and go to board schedule, go to board schedule. There you go. Yeah. So if you click on regular meeting packet, on Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Let me go. Yeah.
Tuesday the 27th. No, just down there.
Yes. Yes.
It's pretty slick to see the new packet.
Yes. So it goes.
Oh, I didn't see this yesterday.
Yeah. So this was the new that we just put the link in, I believe, yesterday.
I know what it did. I hit agenda packet because that's what I wanted.
Yeah. So it's
pretty slick.
The very features. So instead of the manual process that Anna has been doing on these packets, when you download this packet, it does give you the option. The bookmarks are automatically created when all the items. So we no longer have to go in there and hand create all of those bookmarks. They're all there for you automatically.
Oh, interesting, because I looked at bookmarks. I downloaded it and I opened it and there weren't any bookmarks. Oh, yes. Good. Okay.
Yeah, so on this, so the first little icon here is just the main pages, and then below it is the bullet points that'll go to bookmarks.
I'll try that again. Okay, then the other thing is I didn't find board announcements. Do I have to, is it that I get to stop doing those, or?
No, so I did come up with a solution because we weren't able to directly put those in the packet as we would. So my solution is, Madam Chair, is we can continue providing you with that one-page sheet and just get you in advance of the meeting, so you have the meetings in advance that are coming up that you can announce.
Why isn't there for that agenda topic just a one-page sheet in the packet?
Oh, that is an even better suggestion. And I believe I can just insert that document in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is a great suggestion, and we will put that in there. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's all about just making sure the public has it. And then I was wondering if this is a feature or capability at all. If someone, so let's say somebody knows we've had or is looking to see if we've had a topic in a while. So let's say they want to see whatever we've met on so far in 2021 on CDBG, or they want to see if we've gotten any kind of work session on a certain topic. Is the search able to just take a topic and search across all, let's say, work session and or business meeting packets? Is that implemented already?
Yes. So what we can do on this search, we have just a keyword if they're looking, or the advanced, or if they're looking for something specific. And
Cool.
we do have options that it will search across agendas, minutes, everything that is publicly on the website. It'll search all files and pull up relevant information.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
For finding a tool that helps us do that.
Yeah, we want it to be as most user-friendly as we possibly can get to make it easier for both you and the public.
Well, I tell you, that is terrific. It comes across to me easier than the Granicus system that we had at Metro, as well as the TRIM system that we used at Metro as well. So that's really terrific because I'm a heavy user of search. So I really appreciate that feature. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
This is phenomenal. This is like 3 light years ahead of where we've been. You know, we've had complete packets, but it's taken a lot of work to assemble them, and all these features are just terrific.
Yeah.
I'm ecstatic. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're definitely wanting to make it easier on the front end to get all these packets ready. Now, as we're going live, it will be on me to make sure the back end of the processing of see how if we can streamline that.
Oh, so there's a good question, for example, or some other error. Should I just send you an email and share how I think I got there?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we'll take it back because what is included with this system is kind of that 24/7 support from the vendor. So we're able to contact them. We've been in touch with them multiple times this week about, well, we have this feature and what happened to this document. And they have been very wonderful to work with for us. So we are very happy. And we're very excited that we're able to bring this to you today to show you so we can finally go live and get going.
Hot diggity dog. I'm thrilled. How about you, commissioners? What do you think? Questions, comments?
I'm actually online. I pulled up the 27th packet, and it's completely in the new design, and it's much more accessible. It's really good. I like it.
Yeah. My final comment, again, I've given you accolades because I think you did a good job, is are there any links that we have previously used to staff members that may not be appropriate to put in agendas because it's going to the public as well, so that you don't get, and I know we don't like to think we get them, but we get them from time to time, people who are a little less than kind about not only their remarks, but the usage of staff time to run down their pet issues. Are there any links that would allow people to continually barrage certain staff members with requests or comments? Or are those going to be, I mean, I like them so that we can get in and ask a question if we have to, but we're making a decision. But are they public links? How are you addressing that security?
So right now, what you're seeing is what the public sees. If each of the commissioners, we have created logins for you as well as internal staff that give you more control over back end things as well, but the public does not have access to those. So they only see what we put out for them to see. And they will still contact us through our methods, through the emails and phone calls and through the mail for other items. And one other feature that I was going to mention as we're going into phase 2, when I republish these agendas, I'm also going to link directly to the YouTube video of these meetings that I will put in the header of the finalized packet. So not only the public will have access to the video, the minutes, signed agenda items, it'll all be contained within the document itself. So, all right, well, I thank you very much for your time, and I will stop sharing and give it back to you.
So before we close out this item, Chair and Board, I would just like to commend, and I think Clerk Moss was very humble about his contributions, as well as Angie Anez and Jennifer Kwan, who the board recently met during the work session website update. This work is incredibly detailed. And precision is important. So just thank you for your attention to detail. This is an example of a software, an enterprise system that not only increases transparency to the community, usability for commissioners, but then what the commissioners don't see is our internal processes and how errors had occurred because we had multiple individuals having to handle multiple processes. So just huge kudos and appreciation for the board's support in this investment.
I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody. As others have said, I suspect that I'll have more questions as I get into it and start using it. So I really appreciate it, and it just looks great. So thank you very much to you, Clerk Moss, and to everybody else behind the scenes.
Yes, and each member of the team brought our different strengths into this. So I brought into the kind of the clerk management, that lens. Anna brought her technical expertise. So she's worked a lot on the back end of getting department liaison set up with passwords and getting into the system. And Angie has done a wonderful job on the kind of view of the portal to make that work. So we each used our own strengths and brought it together as a team.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you again.
You're very welcome.
So we'll move on to the next item for our roundtable today, and that's the Clean Water Services Financial Update. Diane Taniguchi-Dennis, take it away, please. Oh, and hello, Mark Jockers.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good morning, Board of Clean Water Services. I also want to wish you a very happy Earth Day on this gorgeous sunny day here. And Clean Water Services, it's a special day that we do celebrate internally. What I wanted to do was first talk about the budget process and things that are coming up for you, and then go into a conversation about the budget to actual financial update as to where Clean Water Services is. So tomorrow you'll be getting the Clean Water Services budget. So Stephanie Morrison should have contacted all of you to make arrangements. And I do know, Chair, you're going on vacation, so the team coordinated to get your budget book over to your office. But the team worked really hard on this. Some of the folks that are behind the scenes, I really wanted to acknowledge. Jody Newcomer, she does the editing at Clean Water Services, and she's been working with the team to make this document more readable and in a format that you can actively take notes on along the side of it. And also Erin Lowry, she's the one that puts the budget together, and she works with all of the the teams, as well as Kathy Leader and all of the directors and all of their teams. So they did a really nice job. We did this under the pandemic conditions, but I'm hoping that you get a really good insight into the workings that the team is creating for all of you. So hopefully that goes well tomorrow, and they're very excited to distribute this document to you. For the budget committee meeting itself, it is in a hybrid mode. So it is virtually broadcasted to all of you, but the team itself, so Mark Jockers, Nate Cullen, Kathy Leader, Aaron Lowry, Jerry Linder, and myself will all be part of live streaming from the public services building auditorium. So we'll be physically there. Many of the team members are coming in to also deliver it. We're trying to manage any glitches that could occur. So you're all welcome if you choose to come, but certainly we've prepared it to be delivered in a virtual mode. So that's what you can expect on May 7th. We'll be starting at 9 a.m. I think the team is preparing some special thing to arrive for all of you on May 7th to augment the budget committee. So that's a bit of a thing that the team's currently working on.
Did I hear you right? That if we want, we can, is it the Clean Water Services conference room we go to, or the
PSB? At the Public Services Building, so right there at the county. So we're all going to physically be there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm so anxious to meet in person. I think I'll join you.
Okay. Yeah. Many of the team members have gotten their vaccines, so we're feeling, we're going to do our physical distancing, but they're feeling pretty safe and while.
Oh, I won't have been the 2 weeks post vaccine number 2. So I guess I better stay home and watch it on the screen. Darn.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Okay.
June, here I come.
Yeah. So our budget committee, we would like you to submit any questions that you have by email or even a call to either Kathy Leader or Mark Jockers or myself. This will allow us to compile all of the questions and be able to have written responses for the entire budget committee to see and also to share with the public. The team is hoping that you can submit your questions by May 3rd. That will give them enough time to be able to prepare their responses prior to the budget committee. So we did this practice last year and it seemed to work really well. So I'm hoping to be able to continue that with you. Then the Clean Water Services team has created an online training tool for the budget committee. You should be receiving information on how to link into that portal. We have a software platform called Absorb, and it's what we use internally to Clean Water Services to provide training. And we're looking to offer this as part of our work through the Research and Innovation program to bring our work and share it with others as part of some of our work with CWI. But you're going to get a flavor of our Absorb learning platform. And there are 4 videos that Kathy Leader and Kim Baylor produced. The first one is a budget versus actual fiscal year 21 for Q2, July through December. The team wanted to be able to share with you that we budgeted and planned for the impact to revenue as it related to the pandemic, as well as being able to not increase rates in the region. And the team did a really good job with their forecasting. They tightened their belts, and she'll be able to, in that video, share with you where we are from an expenditure standpoint. So the good news is we're on track with what we planned, and that we also wanted to share with you sort of what the new rate trajectory that we're on and the work that we're going to be doing to forecast future rates. But in order to do that, we wanted you to have a rate sort of 101. So it's talking about our sanitary sewer and our stormwater rates, both regional and local. So we wanted everyone to have a very good foundation on that. So there is a video that Kathy prepared on rates 101. And that does feed into the rate plan that we were on before the pandemic, and then 2 years of the rate plan that we're on to ensure that we have good stability in the region as we recover, but also the future, how this new rate trajectory puts us on a different reduced revenue stream. So that impacts our ability to invest, particularly in capital. So the team right now is looking at the capital program and resequencing it and reprioritizing it. But that feeds into the financial plan, and our cost of services study, and Kim Baylor provides a good background on what a financial plan is and what a cost of services study is. And this, we will be working with all of our partners in the region as we do our analysis and we move forward. We are going to be coming to the board to ask you to charge CWAC to go through this process as part of our engagement and getting feedback from them as we work forward. We are also going to be re-engaging what used to be called the service study group with our regional partners, and to be able to have active ongoing engagement with them as we move forward. So what Mark Jockers would like to do with you today is to be able to introduce you to the Absorb training and to demonstrate it for you. And I think he's going to actually try to play the budget to actual video for you today. So with that, I wanted to pause here and see if you had any questions before I turn it over to Mark Jockers. Right. We're hoping that this mode of conveying information works for the board. So we would like your feedback on that. We were trying to make sure that we provided enough background information for the board, but yet being very mindful of your work session schedules moving forward. So if this works for you, that would be really great, as a way to convey what we're calling training information. And before Mark starts, I did want to share with you that one of GASB's and GFOA's best practices is to create a page for what we call investors. So people who buy our municipal bonds, as well as information for our ratepayers. So these types of videos are going to enable us to be able to provide more proactive information by creating a very specific web page to be able to have this information available. So the team is going to be working on structuring it and being able to load what we need to support our investors in clean water services. So exciting new changes going on. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to have Mark share with you the Absorb training platform.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Chair and members of the board. I think I'm playing the role of Clerk Moss here. I'm going to be showing you, it's not nearly as complex, and I'm very, very impressed with the agenda work. I know our team worked with that too, but I'm going to try to walk you through some of these training pieces that we have. As Diane said, we're trying to be very cognizant of how we provide information to the board in a way that's time effective. We know that there's a lot of pressure on your work session and on regular agenda pieces. What are some other methods that we can do? This is a training platform that we provide to our employees, as Diane said, as well as we actually have a training program that we actually market to people outside of clean water services. But we're going to show you a little bit about this. I'm going to share my screen here and walk through a couple of these slides, and then hopefully be able to show you. Now, do I have that up there? Good, thank you very much. So what I want to do is, this is our Clean Water Learning Online. We have created a channel for the board of directors. And in this case, it's actually a channel for the budget committee. So this is information that we are providing both to you directly, and we're providing to the 5 citizen members of our budget committee. The interest is to provide you with some foundational information that will be important for you to be able to understand our budget better. There are 4 videos, as Diane mentioned here, and they're pretty short. I mean, the one that I want to talk about today and hopefully be able to show, the budget versus actual, is 4 minutes long. It's not that long. Some of the longer videos on kind of how utility rates are set up, that's close to 10 to 11 minutes long. And then we also have a video on kind of the broader issue of how we go through a cost of service study. That's also 10 or 11 minutes long, but relatively speaking, it's short. Basically what you have here is we will send you to something called Clean Water Learning Online. The interface will look like this. You can use your email address, your Washington County email address, to log in. To log in, you will use this password here, CWS Board 2550. 2550 is our address on Hillsborough Highway. That you'll use that all caps. That will log you into a system that will look like this. Here's my interface that I have on the board learning channel. It includes my courses, Resume, which is a piece you'll use to come back to something if you leave it, edit profile, outlink to Clean Water Services website, and then the log out itself. Across the bottom, you'll see the 4 courses that are available. Those courses are the ones that are currently available to you. The Resume, as I said before, is where you can step back into something you maybe have started already. This is important for us, for instance, at Clean Water Services with our staff training. Some of the trainings may be an hour or 2 hours long. You only can watch an hour and then you come back to it. With the pieces that we put together for the board here, as I said before, most of them are between 3 minutes and 10 or 15 minutes, so they're relatively short. The edit profile is to update information on your particular profile, access to the website, and then the log out. The first thing you're going to do to go in, and these instructions will be transmitted to you tomorrow via email too, is you hit start a course. You're able to simply hit the start a course piece, which is the button down here at the bottom. And then you'll go through. Ideally, the way that you're going to go through this is the budget versus actual, the rates 101, the rate plan, and the financial plan and cost of services study. Current courses each have 1 video. You hit click the start to begin, and the videos can be watched all at once or can be revisited as needed. We ask that you go into your edit profile piece to change your password when you get in there, just in terms of a cybersecurity vulnerabilities. It is very, very simple. You just simply click on the icon in the upper right-hand corner, which you can see highlighted here, the little profile piece. You can go in there, you hit change password, you enter the current password, enter a new password, and save. Those videos are short. As I said before, if you do step out, you can come back in and resume them. And that's all I have there. What I want to be able to do now is show you actually one of these videos. Before I do that, are any questions on what we have so far? Chair?
So we should read this information certainly before the budget meeting.
Yes.
On Friday, May 7th. Will our budget committee members also have access to these
Yes.
videos? And
Yes.
then will the public have access to these videos?
So that's 2 yeses and a no, not yet. So the yeses are yes, the board will have it. The budget committee will have it too. We will package these as basically as PDFs, not as a video itself, and provide them as part of the information that we provide to the public. So when we release our budget, On Monday, it's released as a PDF on our website. With that, we are looking at how we provide these particular background pieces. There'll be static PowerPoints. They won't be the videos right away. We're still looking at how we can actually provide the full video piece as well.
Legally, we're allowed to have information that goes to the board and the budget committee that isn't available to the public?
Well, it will be available to the public. We will make it available to the public. These PowerPoints on the information will all be available.
Oh, got it. The video is of PowerPoints. Bring it to life with the audio.
Right. So it is literally just the person talking through the videos. I mean, talking through the PowerPoint. You ask a really good question, though, because we see this as kind of a board training piece. Like maybe there'll be training on other issues, but this is really budget. So it needs to be that public side of it. But how do we deliver this information to you? So it speaks to it. And ideally, yes, you'll look at this before you look at the budget. It's an investment of maybe 35 or 40 minutes. So it is pretty quick, although you're going to probably want to think about, you'll have questions and pieces.
Well, I heard 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So that's 50 minutes.
I'm sorry if I misspoke. It's 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 11 minutes, and 14 minutes. So it's pretty short. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share this screen and show you how I actually log into this particular piece as well. So I'm assuming you're able to see my so I type in my password. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. And that brings me to a profile. You'll have the same profile, and instead of saying, hi, Mark Jockers, it will say, hi, Catherine Harrington, right? So, and here we go. And what I'd like to be able to do is, we talked about providing the budget versus actual. This is the actual video of the PowerPoint. And I'd like to be able to try to show you this. So you go there. It says it's completed. I've watched all my programs. I've got my merit badges there, but I'm going to go ahead and see if we can go ahead and start you here. I'm
Kathy Leader, Chief. Welcome to this presentation on Clean Water Service.
So are you getting the audio? Okay, so here we go. We're going to go through this 3.5-minute video, and this is our budget versus actual for Q2 of fiscal 21.
This is budget versus actual reporting for activity through the second quarter of fiscal year 2021. I'm Kathy Leader, Chief Financial Officer for Clean Water Services. I will be providing an update for the second quarter through December 31st, 2020 on the percentage of budget revenues collected and budget spent. I will also discuss revenue versus expenditure and the results of operations for the second quarter. This slide shows the historical and current year percentage of budgeted revenues collected by quarter. Revenue collections in the second quarter are at 50% of budget, shown by the yellow bar in Q2. This is in line with historical trends between 47 and 54% for the second quarter. Revenues collected in the current year are lower than the prior year, mainly due to the reduction in system development charges collected for new development in the county. This reduction in construction and development was anticipated due to the pandemic, and revenue estimates included in the fiscal year 21 budget were reduced from prior year levels. This graph provides a more visual comparison of the percentage of revenue collected in the second quarter as compared to the budget for the past 5 years. Collections remain strong in the current year. This slide shows the historical and current year percentage of budget spent by quarter. The percentage of budget spent in the second quarter is at 34%. This is low when compared to the historical average between 33 and 39%. Costs in the current year are just under $17 million less than the prior year. This is mainly due to the reduction in capital spending in the current year, but also reflects the district's prioritization and sequencing of hiring for vacancies and new positions. This graph shows a more visual comparison of the percentage of budget spent in the second quarter as compared to the past 5 years, and emphasizes the cost controls put in place in the current year. This slide provides a comparison of historical and current year results of operations for the second quarter. Revenues in fiscal year 21 are slightly lower than the prior year, mainly due to a reduction in system development charges collected, and expenditures mapped by the yellow line are down due to reductions in capital spending. The district was aware of the fiscal impact this pandemic could have on revenue collections, including customer delinquencies, reduced customer demand, and the deferral of planned rate increases in fiscal year 21. The district proactively reduced planned expenditures in the budget and set aside non-departmental funds related to new staff positions not included in the departmental budgets. These positions were approved mid-year based on analysis of these second quarter results of operations and future revenue projections. In summary, second quarter revenues collected are in line with budget and historical trends. The district has done a good job tightening its belt and prioritizing and sequencing capital investments and hiring for current vacancies and new positions. Fund reserves are forecasted to stay level at year end due to controlled operating and capital spending. This concludes our presentation of the second quarter results of operations. Be sure to tune in for our next presentation, which will discuss Clean Water Services rate plan for the past, current, and future. During this presentation, we will analyze the impact of pre- and post-pandemic rate forecasts and its impact on future financial planning for the district. Thank you.
So that gives you a sense of how those pieces work. It's 3 minutes. I will say the next one is longer, certainly, really to examining the impact of the delayed rate increase. We didn't do a rate increase last year. That has consequences on our long-term revenue. Talks about what that consequences look like. So that'll be important to look at. I think also the piece on Utility Rates 101 really gives you a sense of how our rates are set, how rates are collected, what are regional rates, and then how cities set their rates to meet their local needs there as well. So hopefully that will be helpful, and certainly happy to take any questions you have specifically about those projection pieces or about the tool itself.
Commissioners, what do you think?
Mark, first a comment, and then a comment on the budget process itself. I like the tools. They're simple enough for people to understand, and having done hundreds of budgets and literally a couple hundred a year that I've looked at for clients, it's a good tool to kind of familiarize. On the budget in general, I made a comment last night at the county's meeting that I would hope that you might want to consider things in terms of what you do as your product or what you do as a service don't change a lot from year to year. I mean, unless you're adding programs, you're having some big changes. So it would be nice for those who are reviewing it at more of an executive level where they've seen what's in the details, would be some sort of a summary that would say what's new. For instance, if you added a new program, if you're adding FTEs, if you're adding rate increases, those sorts of things are easy to spell out without too much discernment. There was a gentleman last night, a budget member, who asked a good question. What should I do in terms of reviewing this? Well, as a new person, you're going to look at everything. But if you've been there, at least one season and you're into your second, you're saying, tell me what's changed. So I would respectfully request that you consider having some kind of a what's new page or summary page that people can look at and really say that's what I need to pay attention to, because it might be that that they've tripled the salary of the CEO, and that they've said that her new contract that she works two days a year, and those, one of them can be a vacation. That might be important to somebody who's reviewing that. I'm being silly, obviously, but they're just high level. What's changed? So anyway, but good job on the video. Kathy did a nice job with her voice. She almost sounded like a professional person who does that. Not that she isn't professional, but I mean who does that on a regular basis. Yeah. So tell her good job.
Certainly. Other questions or comments?
Okay, so I got to show, I guess, my ignorance here, Mark. I went on to Clean Water Services website. You did it obviously as an employee, so you log in, show your password, and all that kind of stuff. How do we do that? How do we get into this?
So the thing is this is not Clean Water Services website. This is a Clean Water Learning Online. It's a separate software, a separate site that we use. I will send you the link. It's called cleanwaterlearning.org. I will send you the direct link together with the credentials you'll need to log into that.
Okay, I just didn't know if I had missed something, and so I wasn't doing something that I should have been doing and logging in and getting my password and all that stuff. So, okay.
I'm hopeful. I'm confident that it is pretty straightforward. It's not terribly complex. We have some fabulous staff that have really helped on the user interface part of it that made it pretty easy, but we're certainly available if you do have any problems. And I appreciate Commissioner Rogers' comment. I mean, I probably shouldn't show you this, but I do have the budget that you'll be getting tomorrow. And this is the summary. It's 500 pages long. Now, it is interesting to be able to look at this and say, what's the difference? You know, where are the changes? We used to produce something called a budget in brief, but it was more of a summary on expenditures and expenses. But we can certainly look at, what do FD, I mean, we've done this reorganization that we've talked to the board about, the realignment in terms of how we're trying to align the organization with our strategic plan. That's a change in what our budget looks like. We've got some FTE changes as well, but looking at that summary, I think would be helpful because I do think that people want to say, our budget is a policy document, right? Where are we making the public investment and how do we tell that story? I think it's important. It does have to be 500 pages long because it does have to, it's a lot, we spend a lot of money. We bring in a lot of rate revenue, but being able to have some summary there would be very helpful. We can see what we can do there.
Mm-hmm. I'd also like to add the focus of the budget presentations is really focused on that, what has changed and where we are and where we're going. So the teams have that prepared for their PowerPoint. But I think we could do a good job. It would help the public as well as everybody here. So we'll talk about that and see what we can deliver on, Roy, for you. But it's really to be able to have a conversation where we have people on a whole different learning, right? So Roy, you've been here for a long time. You've gone over Clean Water Services budgets and you're real interested in what's changing. We have some new folks, right? And we have folks that this is their second budget cycle. So we want to make sure that we build the learning throughout that entire trajectory. I think it's going to help as we bring on new CWAC members to be able to do this in that learning mode. So it is, you're getting sort of the vibe of what we're doing to prepare for our succession planning and knowledge transfer, even internal to Clean Water Services. So it'd be fun one day to be able to give you a preview of the training that's available to internal staff that the team is building. It's really this new mode of learning, right? Learning through hearing, seeing, and also being able to experience and ask questions. So the team's very focused on that. But thank you. Kathy and Kim were nervous, so they would really like your feedback. Kathy's comment to me is, it's really hard to listen to yourself. She was very, very sincere, and but it was really good for them to be able to do this for all of you. So thank you. Any questions specific to the update that Kathy gave? That is our financial update in terms of where we are in terms of position for the end of December. She's also been monitoring and she'll be closing her first quarter here in about a month. But we're still looking like we're on track. So the team is doing a good job controlling flow of expenditures with cash flow. So. Great.
I think it's great. Thank you very much for putting this helpful information together. And I know we look forward to our budget committee meeting. I know last year we were able to assemble in the auditorium. This year it will be mostly, well, a bunch of us will be on screens like this. For those of you in the auditorium, I understand from our staff showing us previously that they've gotten great new cameras in the auditorium, so you won't be those little teeny tiny talking heads. So that'll be great too.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for bringing that forward to us. We'll move on next to our second agency, Washington County. Ms. Angie.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Commissioners. Kevin, if you could promote Jack and Latricia, I would appreciate that. And then if we could have the PowerPoint displayed as well. Okay. So today we have a brief financial update. As the board's aware, we are, I don't want to say the word scrambling, but I will say feverishly working on completion of the Washington County budget. Today in this presentation will be myself, along with Jack Leong, and then Latricia Tillman. Next slide, please. So our discussion agenda, and I do want to just lift up, the intent of today's item is really a discussion with the board. So please ask questions at any point in time as we move through our agenda. So first, Jack will lead us through a general fund forecast, discuss the budget process as far as where we are now in the next steps. And then I will walk through financial management priorities and service area considerations. And Latricia will discuss discretionary funding allocation. And we do have a few key questions we would like to ask the board during this portion of the slide presentation. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Jack.
Thank you, Tanya. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time to look at our financial update today. I will get started with our financial general fund assumptions and forecast. Starting on the assumptions, there were a couple key assumption changes. In this table that's showing over here, you can see over time changes of a couple key assumptions from last year's budget development all the way into our financial update number 1, number 2, and then today's financial update number 3. So what has stayed the same, which is the first line, is the strategic FTE growth assumption is still at 1%. And then what is has changed from the last update is the rest of the lines that's shaded in green over here. Starting with the general fund revenue collection, we were fairly conservative when it comes to our revenue collection for fiscal year 2021. And then for 21-22, we are a little bit more optimistic to assume that our revenue collection for general fund would go back to the normal level. And then the next line is the TLT, which is the transient lodging tax growth. And then we continue to experience severely affected transient lodging tax, although it wasn't as bad as we were projecting. We were originally projecting 75% drop, and our actual numbers that has been coming in this year is at about 62% drop. So it's a little bit better news, still concerning, but better than what we thought before. And then on our strategic investment program revenue assumptions, we have previously conservatively projected 32 million. And then after truing up some numbers, looking at some of those trends, we are anticipating some growth this year, starting this year actually, that may last for the next couple of years. And that's where we upped our projected SIP revenue to 39 million, 39.6 to be exact. And then the next line is our purse rate. So our published PERS rate was out, and then the county used a blended PERS rate to where we mix our tier 1, tier 2, and the observe and place and fire to get to a blended rate for projection reasons. And after we true up our employee mix, it wouldn't be a surprise that we continue to have a larger portion of observe as our employees turnover compared to tier 1, tier 2s. So our blended PERS rate actually slightly shifted to 22.73 from the 22.84. And then looking at COLA, obviously this year we didn't run into the high inflation as we expected before. So for fiscal year 21-22, we are seeing a COLA of 1.8%, and then we're still keeping the 2.5% as an ongoing projection just to stay conservative in case the inflation start to take off. And then on the 2% expenditure reductions, we originally planned it 3 years, and then we later moved it to 2 years. And then after looking at some numbers to keep our fund balance intact, we landed for this year's assumption at 2% for the next 2 years and 1% for year 3. And the next 2 years meaning the 21-22 and 22-23, and then 1% for 23-24. So these are some of the key assumption changes. Obviously, there are a lot of other assumptions that goes into the projection, but I thought these are the ones that's worth highlighting for your board's information. Next slide, please.
Jack, can I ask you a question before you go too far?
Of course.
For my edification, assumptions are usually based on some analysis or some methodology that you've used. Are these just, as we say, and I've done them too, some best guesses, or is there any science to what you've done here?
I would say there is some. There's definitely analysis that goes into each one of this. Some of them are tentative decisions or directions. For example, if the expenditure reduction is really what we started playing with the numbers to see, okay, what kind of reduction will be needed for us to maintain the fund balance level. That's in accordance to the board policy. But on the revenue side, there's a lot of analysis that goes into it. Our historical trend is really our first place to go. Is for example, both transient lodging tax and the general fund is specifically property tax revenue. We're looking at how we have experienced throughout this whole pandemic time, and the conclusion is that our property tax revenue is not impacted too much. TLT is impacted, but our historical trend so far has told us that we're at a negative 62%. So these assumptions are based on some analysis, although we're trying to predict the future. So it's almost guaranteed that we're never going to land right on the dot. We're hoping to get somewhere close. All right, so that gets us to the next slide. So with all of that assumption, along with other assumptions that goes into the forecast, this is the fund balance percentage trend that we're seeing in the next 5 years. And then starting from 1920, that's our actual percentage. And then with continued spend down of the fund balance, we anticipate to land at 19.35% for 2021. And then with all the assumptions that's going into our projection to 21-22, 22-23, 23-24, you can see that we are able to get it to a place where we see that we're mostly navigating between the 15% to 20% fund balance range. And that is really the CEO's effort, finance effort to tell the future as best as we can to navigate within the board's adopted fund balance target policy. Any questions for this trend? All right, thank you very much. Next slide, please. And next, we'll jump into the budget process timeline. I believe all 5 of you have attended yesterday's orientation. So this is a quick repeat of what was included at yesterday's budget committee orientation. Electronic version will be available on April 28th, and then the printed version will be available at the latest April 30th. We are hoping to get it a little sooner than that. And we will get those by request to the community budget committee members. In our past experience, all Board of Commissioners has a preferred printed copy. I just wanted to do a quick check to see if everybody still want a printed copy for this year. Okay, our assumption is right. So we will have printed copy by default. No need to request to us. We will get a printed copy delivered to you. And then the economic trends and indicators that will be presented by Eco Northwest is scheduled at May 4th. board work session, and that is a team effort between the county and Clean Water Services. And it's the second year that we're partnering with this this organization, and our experience last year has been very great, and we're looking forward to that economic update from Eco Northwest. Next slide, please. And then this is just a quick summary of all the budget committee meetings that is happening in May. And we have 6 meetings in total that spans over 3 days, May 12th, May 13th, and May 26th, with the board adoption of the county budget on June 15th. And that is a quick calendar for that. I believe that's the end of the my part of the presentation, which leads us to the budget process timeline. Any questions on the rest of the budget process? All right. Well, I'll hand it back to Tanya to discuss some of the financial priorities and considerations.
Thank you, Jack. Next slide, please. So I do want to give Jack the credit for the creativity on this slide as we were talking about financial headwinds. So what this photo depicts is we have community needs and we have cost of services that are really leading out in front of our current revenue. And you'll see that as you're presented with the proposed budget. And this isn't a problem to be solved just in one budget year. It's an ongoing conversation, and is an ongoing conversation in local government in general. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? Our community needs for services are rapidly growing due to population growth and emerging public interests. Some things that I've thought about is looking back 10 to 15 years, affordable housing, homelessness, houselessness were not the priorities that they are today. And so our service delivery model is very different than it once was. Behavioral health is another service area that we've seen the community need just increase tremendously, especially over this last year with COVID. Cost of services are increasing, personnel cost, inflation cost, construction cost, and other economic factors. And our revenue growth is at a slower pace comparing these cost of services. Commissioner Rogers, you asked a really good question about our general fund projection. The revenue side is the side that we really need to closely monitor moving forward, given our current economic condition. Next slide. So what are some of the ongoing and emerging priorities? We continue to move forward with the equity resolution through our equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts, affordable housing, houselessness, population services, such as not only shelters, but also encampments within our county, and commissioners have been contacted more recently on encampment concerns from community. Our public health emergency response, mental health crisis response, general infrastructure investments. So ensuring that we are investing in our transportation system, but then also just our county operational infrastructure needs. So which aligns with our facilities strategic plan and associated buildings. Our public safety and justice system, with a growing community, there's greater pressures, and this also links to state revenues for services such as corrections. Transportation, maintenance, I already spoke about infrastructure investment, general government services, so our HR practices, finance, our internal operations, the board directed staff to move forward with increasing county council staffing, but that's just one area of our general government that we need to continue to look at, because the general government is important to be able to support the strong services that I previously mentioned. And then continuation of our strong library system that our community relies on in Washington County. Next slide, please. So as we've looked at the budget, some things the board will see of focus is COVID-19. I believe we can all say we wish this wouldn't have to be a budget consideration, but it does need to be an ongoing consideration. And so this consideration is balanced with response activities as well as upcoming recovery activities. Capital investments, the strategic facilities, planning process. The board has recently talked about the CAT Center, courthouse planning, animal services facilities. And I want to indicate I had version control issues. I actually changed this last bullet, but I sent Kevin and the board the wrong version. So ongoing technology investments is really ongoing major enterprise systems. So please don't confuse this with the phones that we all rely on. This is systems much larger than the iAgenda system that you had seen today. This is our whole financial management system, HR system, looking across departments' data collection, and ensuring that we have an ongoing investment. So we have modern systems that meet business needs and also meet transparency, security, controls, et cetera. Land use and transportation, the board's recently been briefed on current planning, road building services, and we continue to have a very close eye on our road fund. Public safety, conciliations, and law library, the board authorized what I call decoupling that funding model, but we're closely monitoring those two services. Community corrections, state revenue challenges, and how that impacts our community correction funding for felony and misdemeanor support. Juvenile available, oh, Jerry? Oh, you're on mute, Jerry.
I'm sorry, I thought you were just about through. I'll go ahead and finish that, and when you get to the,
okay.
I'll have a question on this slide.
Okay. Juvenile available beds. This is an impact that's seen not only here in Washington County, but also Multnomah County and Clackamas County, where there's a reduction in available beds. On one side, the reduction is aligning that with the bed needs. However, this is an area we really need to continue to monitor. So our juvenile services is meeting the community needs. Sheriff's office and DA's office. This was part of my version control. Those should actually be two separate bullets because it's very different needs. Sheriff's office includes jail needs, operational needs of the jail, and how the jail has pivoted through COVID has been we've seen benefit by being able to use CRF to help with some of these operational needs. And the reality is our population continues to grow in Washington County. So meeting the Sheriff's Department officer per 1,000 continues to be an ongoing challenge. DA has staffing needs relative to the increase in technology across the county and how that impacts the DA's work. And you'll hear more about that in the budget presentation. Next slide, please. Oh, Jerry, you want us, before next slide. Sorry, Jerry, I almost didn't go back to your question.
Okay, I would have reminded you.
I know.
Going on the ongoing technology investments, is that where we would see the additional costs that we're going to incur for the cameras in the Sheriff's Department? We had heard that retention and storage and all of that video data, all of those kinds of things. Is that where that additional cost would be, or would that be over under public safety?
That would be under public safety. More so the enterprise systems. Those are multiple $million capital investments that we need to start discussing, and how do we plan for those investments? An enterprise management system, many times what organizations do is replace the full system at once. So that's your finance, your HR, all your internal systems, because there are economies of scale by doing that. It's a very capital intensive and also staff intensive transition. I will indicate based on my short time here in Washington County, as well as discussions with Jack and Eva Levante, this is a significant need that we need to start planning for in Washington County, not only to modernize our systems, but it will make things more efficient. And Jack, do you want to comment on this at all?
Thank you, Tanya. Yes. I think the one that's in front of us is the enterprise resource planning system. While there's a very finance and HR, HCM, which is a human capital management centric, but it really serves as a supporting system for all businesses that happens throughout the department. So I don't want to miscommunicate in the way that it's only a finance system, but it's really, that's why it's called enterprise resource planning system. It really is a back engine that drives all the businesses, no matter if it's animal services or HHS or public safety. But to your question, Commissioner Willie, is that that's why we call it ongoing technology investment. It's not just one project. It's really the initiative to modernize, for lack of a better word, Washington County's processes. We have heard a lot of both community need and leadership need on data-driven decision makings. And then we can really support that well without a sophisticated system that provides this data and then manage this data. And then that's, at a larger scale, it will be the enterprise resource planning system. At a smaller scale, comparatively smaller scale, the iAgenda system that you just saw is just one example of that kind of ongoing investment. So that's really what we're trying to incorporate in there. Is we do not want to minimize our technology investment. In fact, we want to do some strategic investment toward that area to really set the county up for success from a data-driven, from a modernization perspective, which will actually help drive the business processes and the business operations to a modern place. And that would actually include a lot of the sheriff's office operations. For example, their laptops that they have in the patrol vehicles are outdated, and then the system does not support Windows 10. And then we actually just recently went through a project, in the process of a project, to replace all of those to be more modernized with the Windows 10 system with the up-to-date support. So those are a lot of those areas. I mean, I'm only naming a few from what I've heard from our excellent information technology services team. But it's really meant to cover all the technology investment that the county need to support ongoing business operations.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, technology, once you get behind in technology, it's very expensive to catch up. And I sense that's a little bit of where we are right now. So yeah, I look forward to it. And I think that's a great planning process that you're going through, Jack, to get us caught up in that arena. It's very important.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie.
Catherine?
I just want to express that I appreciate Commissioner Willie inquiring about this further. This is an area where our interim CAO elevated to, I believe, to all of us, but certainly let me know that our systems were, as he put it, we don't do things that way anymore. And your underlying systems are really, really out of date. So he tried to sensitize us to that while also letting us know that the scope of investment would be significant, up to the $10 million plus range, right? Not just 1 million here, 1 million there, but creeping up to 10 and in the teens over time. So I appreciate that our new CAO and our CFO, Jack Leong, are looking at how do we plan this out so that we can be an agency that's poised for the future and catch up here in the early part of the 2020s to carry the agency forward into a future decade. So thanks for helping us sort through that. We're going to have some ongoing conversations about the current state of affairs and the state of need. So I look forward to learning more. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So Jack, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about fund balance and reserve considerations and the work your team's going to be doing.
I do. Thank you. So at the April 20th board meeting, your board approved two policies. One is a budget policy. The other one is the organization's fund balance target, fund balance and reserve target policy. On the general fund side, our general percentage did not change, as you are well aware. Is continue, and we take that policy and then continue to execute to the 15% to 20% fund balance target. As you have seen in the forecast, that is where we feel comfortable with navigating the current financial conditions with our assumptions. We do feel comfortable navigating that area. Shifting to the special funds, we are well aware the current condition is that the special funds fund balance has been reviewed not in a regularly scheduled manner. So what we're trying to do is we're working with the departments in the process of a project to establish fund balance philosophies for each special fund and then document those philosophies, which boils down to a target for each special fund. And then once we create that inventory, we will be doing an annual review and monitoring process for better future reporting to our board. And this is a part of us getting to that data-driven decision-making, that data-centric type of monitoring. And with a better system, it will be much easier. But right now that we're still anticipating this will be managing spreadsheets. But once we have the process in place, we can easily convert that into a system that will be a little more easier to manage. So that's just a quick update on what our plan is for the special fund. As you have reviewed, the fund balance target and reserve policy still is a little general and open for the special fund side. And then we anticipate once we go through this process to implement a procedure that accommodates that, which documents this fund balance targets in the same place.
Jerry?
Yeah, so if I could interpret this a little bit differently, Jack, and tell me if I'm thinking incorrectly. We have seen some funds have fairly significant reserves and some funds minimal reserves. Is this what you just described, a process to standardize reserve funds so that they're more consistent across the board? Am I misunderstanding that?
Kind of. I think the first step that we're standardizing is a process and an evaluation process. The reality is that every special fund is a little bit different anyway. So it may not be like one size fits all, everybody keep a 15% reserve. It may not necessarily work. But what we have realized is that over time, because of the special nature of special fund, sometimes that, all the departments are very busy, including central finance and CEO's office. Sometimes we don't review those over a number of years. And then some funds fund balance accumulates. And then sometimes we also don't review those number of years. Some funds fund balance actually deteriorates to a dangerous level. And then there hasn't been a centralized system to say, okay, let's look at all of them together and then set red, green, yellow status on this fund balance. And then for the red ones, let's find a way to restore those fund balances. For the green ones, let's start asking those hard questions to say, should we turn these dollars into community services or should they continue to accumulate? So really the first step is to bring that consistent process together where we have a platform to discuss each one of these fund balances. I still imagine that each fund will have its uniqueness and may have a different level of appropriateness for fund balance, and but at least we will have one place to look at all of those and get comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Tanya, we're going to add to it.
If I may add to it, part of that review will also be the board may decide that there's a strategic initiative such as a capital investment that you want to ensure that we have ample fund balance in a special fund, that we're going to be able to fund X project, X initiative. And so it's about transparency as well as financial planning.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because, in just a couple of years that I've been on the commission, it is a little bit interesting to me that we have significant fund balances. And like I said, we have some that are in the minimal range. And I appreciate the fact that I'd like to see some methodology to how much reserve funds actually should be. In the private sector, that would probably be termed as a burn rate. So how long can we live with a zero revenue income stream? And so to sustain your business, you keep that as your cash reserves. I'd like to see us be having some of that same consistency amongst our funds, so that we all, or at least a defined explanation of the purpose of those reserve funds and why some are larger than others. And so I'm hoping that's the direction we go here.
I'd like to jump into and reinforce what Jerry is saying. He's taking the appropriate view of it very analytically and saying, what are our lines of service and what kinds of things do we need to keep in terms of revenues, as well as what kinds of reserve monies do we need to continue those services. I know that we keep talking about in the future we're going to do some strategic look at what we're doing, but if we're adding programs and we're adding services, that it's a sure recipe for having a problem in a year or two, where we've added things without the planning for the revenue sources or the fund balances. And so that's why I was asking Jack about his assumptions. Were they, and I've done it all the time, and I'm sure when Jerry was in practice, he was doing the same thing. We have to make some educated guesses, but I'm a little concerned about the level of dollars and what we're having as far as reserves. So I support Jerry's point entirely. He's asking the right questions, because one fund balance of 10 or 5 or 15 or 20 might be appropriate in one fund, completely inappropriate in a different fund if the revenue sources are not going to be there. So anyway.
Yep, definitely agree with both of your comments, and that's why we imagine it's going to be an inventory system rather than a one-size-fits-all to each special fund. So we do look forward to the result of that project. And then the next slide is the discretionary funding allocation. I would like to turn it back to Tanya and Latricia to lead through that discussion.
Latricia?
Sure. Thanks. Good morning, Chair Harrington and board. I am happy to hear the comments about the need with other fund areas to have a consistent review process, evaluation process, and make sure there's philosophical alignment and transparency, because I think that's exactly the conversation that we want to have here around a strategic conversation about how we do allocations for some discretionary funding buckets. And within the budget process, we're looking at how do we take an initial step at embedding equity into budget, both being mindful of our financial headwinds and the increase in demand for services or need for services, which are often coupled with increasing racial inequity or increasing knowledge, deepening knowledge of the factors that contribute to the inequities that we see in Washington County. So our initial step is starting to look at discretionary funding and thinking about how we might be able to think about inequity or centering equity in making decisions about discretionary funds. So we're taking an initial pass looking at funds like our non-departmental funds, community network, lottery, as well as transient lodging taxes. And what we're finding there is that there have been some historical relationships that have been maintained over a long period of time. In some, it's around memberships to different organizations or chambers. And that we are kind of carrying forward past approaches and maybe have a little bit of, I think with new folks coming on, some gaps in our organizational memory around what were the relationships that led to those funding arrangements, what was the expectation horizon? Were there particular expectations or outcomes of those funding decisions? We're also seeing that there's a little bit of inconsistency or maybe a lack of knowledge around that philosophy of how funds get allocated within those buckets, because we sometimes see organizations getting funding across multiple buckets, and it's not exactly clear why certain allocations are made from those different funding sources. So given both the financial headwinds that we're facing, as well as the equity resolution that you are wanting to operationalize, we want to explore whether you would recommend a further examination of discretionary funding allocations. And so some of those questions are, do you support that further examination of how we are looking at discretionary funding going forward? What would the process outcomes be that you'd be interested in? And is equity part of that process for you that you would like to see explicit through that conversation?
You asking for an answer right now?
I think, yeah, initial thoughts right now would be really helpful.
I support this very strongly, and I think we need to be looking at all the discretionary funding and what the history has been, what the future looks like, and there's no question that equity has to be in the center of that process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I would agree with Commissioner Teresa, especially about the last bullet there is equity has to be in the process. I mean, that was the focal point, I think, of our resolution, and that's just going to be a part of our mainstream thoughts, I hope, as we go into the future. So to me, that's an easy answer. The other ones have some interesting implications, I believe, when we start talking about looking at discretionary funding, especially within the departments. And I completely agree with your comment about that there have been funding provided to particular organizations from more than one bucket. And it's difficult to see exactly what our support of these organizations are when it's not clear who's giving to what. And so I would agree with that. And I guess my comment would be I welcome further conversations about what's the impact of that, and what is our individual departments that are I guess that would be impacted by this kind of conversation. What's their thoughts on it too? So I would appreciate further conversation on this.
My thoughts are these: that yeah, on the right side, as I look at the slide in front of me, that there's others have said what we need to say. There's nothing to be discussed there. But I really support your look. Historically, what we did is we were a contract county, and proudly so. In our comments, we contracted most services, and we're finding as time goes by that many of the things that we did might be more appropriate to bring back in-house. And I think that's what you're getting at, and not only in the allocation, but in the operations. And so I think it's appropriate, and that's why I keep, and it sounds like a broken record, and I apologize about that, but looking at something more timely than a couple years from now to take a look, because organizations, if we bring things back in, have to have time to, adjust their budgets accordingly. They have to anticipate what's going to happen. We have to understand what we're doing as well. But we've stood up some organizations, frankly, that we could have done very easily internally in the past that probably rightly should be re-examined. And we should say, should we be doing that? And why aren't we doing that internally? And we can find many examples, and I could too. I won't throw them out right now, but I have them in my mind of let's take a look at that. I think it's fair game, and I would only suggest that this process not be elongated, because if I were in a community organization or a organization that's historically had most of its funding from us, and we're now saying, why are we doing that? I think they need ample time to adjust. And so I'm all for what I call the left side of the screen as I look at it, going through there and taking a look at what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that there may be some conversations about things that have historically been outsourced from the county and bringing that in. I think the other part of the question is there are a number of organizations who've gotten funding through these discretionary funding sources. And I think some of the question is, well, why those organizations and not other organizations? And how did those decisions get made? And so is there a more equitable process, a more transparent process for making those decisions if it's not currently transparent or based on a agreed upon philosophy at this time?
Commissioner Fye, any thoughts?
I support looking into this. Yeah, I'm thumbs up from my end. And I think just so that we don't worry the organizations that are currently receiving these funding allocations from Washington County, I think it might be prudent for us to send them a heads up that we're just looking from our own internal process, that we're not just immediately cutting funds, just so that we're not adding more stress to folks out there, since there's already a stress out there from COVID and the pandemic and everything that's happening in the world. To that, just the minor, because if I was one of these organizations that have been traditionally gotten funding from Washington County, and now that we're looking, I think, I think it's just a kind thing to do, to give them a heads up.
I think that's a great point, Commissioner Fye. I think when we talk about doing an examination, making sure we have philosophical alignment, centering equity, some organizations may see their funding decrease and others may actually see increase in their funding. And then other organizations who maybe have gotten funding for a number of years may see now an expectation of accountability for particular outcomes. So I think all of that is really important, that we are very clear in our communication and give organizations enough lead time to make adjustments.
Anything else, commissioners, before I go? Okay, I'll just pick up on some of the most recent stuff I've heard with regard to doing the nice thing and sending us heads up to some of these groups. I think when three of us started in 2019 and really began digging into some of the information, we started sending signals and sent some pretty clear ones in the October timeframe. So there shouldn't be any surprises that we are taking a look, because we said so in 2019. Now, of course, COVID has sort of overshadowed everything, but so we're really picking back up and getting to that. And I want to be clear that folks hear the message that we're taking a look and we're evaluating and asking why. And what does it lead to? What do these investments lead to? We're not saying we're making a change. There's no carte blanche here. So I think that's an important message. I hadn't heard it said, so I wanted to make sure I stated it. In the positioning of this, I heard mention of expectations and outcomes. I want to offer up a third word to add to that, and that is the word value. But to be very clear here, we are an agency that delivers certain services, right? We have a service portfolio, and that portfolio has changed over time, primarily, or at least the last few years, because of voter approved measures, right? We have more special funds for affordable housing and supportive housing services as just two examples because of voter approved measures. I'm particularly sharing this point about value as for the agency in its service delivery, because I had a recent constituent interaction this week where it was expressed that the county, being Washington County, takes care of everything and is responsible for everything. And what do you mean you don't have authority over this thing that I see happening in my community? And, you know, sort of counterbalancing that no, we don't have authority over everything just because it's in Washington County. So when I talk about value and value for the agency in its service delivery, there's a limit to how much interest I have in value to the whole community, because we don't deliver, it's not all inclusive. Our services are not all inclusive for Washington County. We have a specific portfolio. Just a couple of other thoughts I wanted to share. I am reminded as you enumerated what's on the left side and the right side of the screen, we are a safety net government. And so I think that is part of what defines how we go about making public investments, how we set up policies, and how we put the public's assets to work. Then I'm also interested in, as you examine things, is demographic trends. And these are really just from a decade view, how the demographics of 2010 and the 20-teens is different than the demographics that we know as of 2020, and then the projection of demographics out to 2023. For example, Beaverton High School, 55% of the high school population is comprised of individuals from communities of color. Those are our future adults, right? Demographics are changing in our community. And not that we will do something different or position to do anything different, but I think we need to be cognizant of that. Looking at also the population of young people and children in Washington County, it's a much larger percentage than it used to be and larger than Multnomah County. For example, the district attorney trots that out in advocating for establishing the nonprofit Cares Northwest physically here in Washington County. There are a couple last things that I'm wondering about, and I'm not sure if it's part of this examination or not, but is certainly part of what I'm looking forward to our discussing as we move forward. Not necessarily this budget year for considering for change, but perhaps for future years. Well, actually, the first of two I'm going to mention is pertinent to this year. Community corrections. You know, we fund community corrections out of our discretionary revenues, in addition to receiving funding from the state for that portion of community corrections that the state funds in that felony misdemeanor aspect of things. But Washington County has, for a good decade at least, maybe longer, chosen to offer community correction services at a level that's different than the state. But when it comes to investing in those services, we undercut ourselves by funding them at a level that uses the state subsidy is the word I was looking for, which sort of blows my mind. We know what the costs are. Why aren't we actually investing ourselves at the true cost? So we're in this downward spiral for ourselves. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think that the time has come to recognize that initial system its time has expired. So I anticipate that that'll be a conversation to go through this budget year and adjust into future years if we so choose. And then the second aspect I'm wondering about comes under the header of access, right? Access to government. By looking at how we center equity, we're trying to do a better job of being a government that is more accessible to our community. Sure, everyone's had the opportunity to write letters and spend their time coming to the auditorium to testify in person. You know, having our meetings by Zoom has enabled an attendance that we haven't had previously, even by virtue of cell phones. But over the course of time, the kind of interactions and features that people are looking for has changed. You know, language access is different. Having materials available at time of publication, it's not good enough to have it in English anymore. And so how are we making sure that that is customer friendly? Another specific example in this arena is the ballot processing. You know, initially we've seen from our elections team over the last two major November elections, people saying, well, okay, I dropped my ballot off or I put it in the mail. I want to know if you've processed it, if you've received it, and then if you've processed it. And our elections team has looked at, well, the cost of that servicing has come down. So that may be something to look into. I'm not saying, you know, they have to do it for, you know, certainly not the May election in this current fiscal year, but that is another access point for government for our service portfolio that we may choose to invest in. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had with regard to examining our discretionary funding allocations.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We will take this and continue our exploration and bring that back. And as was mentioned, this is not with the intent of impacting this year's budget, but to set the stage for how we continue to build some consistency in practice and transparency, as well as equity in our budgeting going forward. I think that's all for me. I'll turn it back over to Tanya and Jack.
Thank you, Latricia. Next slide, please. And with that, the three of us are open to any questions, comments from the board.
Commissioners, anything?
This is my favorite time of year. Let's bring on the numbers. Shoot.
I appreciate the thoughtful preparation and you know, the stage setting as we move forward. So thank you. It's going to be, May is always a a great month for Jerry and Roy, and Catherine, I know you love this. I'm going, but I really enjoy getting through the process, so thank you.
And Commissioner Treese, this year you're not alone. I join you in that.
Could I make one last suggestion? And this is just for the budget committee members. Again, I was trying for changes that they could easily say, can we explain what our lines of businesses are a little more appropriately when we talk? We use fund accounting. Jack, you and I know that. I've done it for 50 years, so I understand it. But that term, other than for government, you're not going to find it anywhere. And so people oftentimes, when you say, well, we have these funds, we have discretionary funds, non-discretionary, we have, general funds and all that sort of thing. People really want to know, what's our lines of businesses? What do we do? And so I think that might help facilitate the whole discussion on, as I asked last night, what are our fund balances? What's our contingency accounts? What are unappropriate amounts? Again, I'm talking, governmental talk, but you have a little better discussion than people saying, I got this enormous 700-page document and I'm hearing about funds which I don't even understand what those are, and things are really confusing. And what they really want to know is, what are you spending on this particular line of business, whether that be housing, whether that, community corrections, whether that's police services. They want to say, what are you spending on that? Not what is this public enforcement fund, or what is this other fund that I don't even know what it is. So it's just a suggestion. I mean, you don't have to do it. We're 99.9% of governments don't, but it would be certainly a lot more transparent to readers. So just a thought.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. We'll look for creative and new ways to try to explain that a little bit better. And obviously for the budget committee, we try to do as much as we can to introduce the idea of the fund and org, because that is a legal boundary where the budget needs to be adopted. But for the public, your point is very well taken. It's to the public, they don't care about the fund or org unit. All they care about is the service. And that's where we match our fund and org unit with service descriptions and some level of program descriptions. But still, we can always do more in that area to kind of make better sense to the public.
It reminds me that last budget year, Jack, when I was asking all kinds of questions, one of the responses that I heard you say a few times is, oh, so what you're saying is you wish we'd done a better job in describing this. And we've worked really hard to get the overview pages down to 1 or 2 pages, but we can see that we're being a little too terse. But I'm also reminded that we talked about this in some prior meetings and have really pointed towards a couple of things of doing a better job as an agency in talking about what our portfolio is, what our services are, why are we in that business, what do we offer as a result of that, and that the budget is just one vehicle for telling that story. And I know Ms. Angie's heard this already from us, that we need to be doing a better job of telling that story before we kick off our new strategic plan, because we don't want our public to be confused about what we do, what we offer. So I think we'll be talking more about that sort of thing later in the year, when we have a roundtable with her about this strategic plan ideas. So I'll just close by saying I really appreciate the exchanges we've had over the last several months in setting the stage for this year's proposed budget, particularly the roundtable conversation that you had with us, Ms. Angie, where you played back to us the priorities, budget priorities direction from the board. That was really very helpful. So I carry that forward and I look forward to receiving the proposed budget and going from there. and seeing what that outline is and how we might need to engage and problem solve through the budget adoption process. Cool. Great. Well, that brings us to the end of our roundtable agenda for today, and lickety split, look at that, it's only 11:19. We've bought ourselves some time. Yes, I'll take it. All righty. Well, I think that's it, unless, go ahead, Miss Angie.
So Chair, you had asked a question when we were just all getting on to this meeting about the burn ban. So I just wanted to share this information with all the commissioners. So I just heard back from John Wheeler, and at this point, the burn ban is expected to be lifted on Friday at 8 a.m.
Good job. Good job. All righty. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you next Tuesday at our board meetings. Take care. Bye-bye. Good job, staff.
All right. Take care, commissioners. We'll see you next week.